From the studio high above the clouds of the Okanagan Valley, this is the Cannabis Podcast. Exploring the world of Canadian cannabis culture, one toke at a time. Now, here's your host and bartender, Gary Johnston.
Has it
and the really exciting news about that is that I am actually a bud tender now.
Those weeks are going by
It may have been
these
a
days.
long-standing dream.
It'll be better when
but I
spring
am
finally
into
comes
my
to our
second
area
or
of the
third week
continent,
of being a
because
bud
boy,
tender
sure,
now,
a
and I
long
am
time
having
coming.
an absolute
Welcome back
blast.
to the Cannabis Podcast.
As my wife
this
says,
is episode number 14.
I think this job was
If
created
you are
just
joining
for
us
you.
for the first time, I'm glad
Maybe
you stopped
I've been
by.
working
Hopefully
towards
you'll
this my
find some
entire life,
information
and the
that's useful
universe
for
has
you, and
finally
you'll be
figured
back
out
for
a way
more.
to put
As
me
we
into
get
that
ready
position.
for
I'm
a
having a
couple of
blast.
things, I'm getting ready
And
for
I'm sure
my
it's going
bud
to
tender
result in
position.
a number
And
of
also,
stories
just to
as we
increase
go
my
along
cannabis
throughout
knowledge,
time as
episode
well.
14 is kind of
Now, this
going to
week
begin
I
a new
do not
phase
have
for
a
us.
new strain
a new
for
education
Cultivar
phase
Corner.
for the podcast.
So our focus
along with
is
the
instead
terpenes
going
that
to
we've
be
covered, and we will
on some
continue
other
to
areas
cover
of
the
education.
terpenes because we know how important
In
they
fact,
are.
something that we haven't
But I'm
touched on
diving
for a
into
while.
a cannabis education
When I
program
first started
now, and
the
I'm gonna share
podcast back
little
in
bits of
December,
that knowledge with
one
you
of
as
the
that
original
education
goals was I
progresses.
wanted it to be a resource
So
for
how about
people
we go back to the basics
new
today?
to cannabis.
We're going to start today
coming in and
with
they
a
could
closer
find some
look
relevant
at the
information and some
endocannabinoid
useful
system,
information
or ECS,
to help them head
and
down
how
that
the
cannabis
cannabinoid
path.
receptors in
And
our
I think
body
I mentioned that there's
designed
a
to
particular
extract
couple of
the
friends
maximum benefit
that
from cannabis.
we have been kind of
really quite
advising
fascinating,
as
and more
they have been
fascinating,
introducing
the
themselves to
deeper I
cannabis.
dive.
So I
Also,
found a story
snuck
on
in another order from the
leafly.ca
BC Cannabis Store
that is 10
just
tips
in
for
time
first-time
to do another
cannabis smokers.
Cultivar Corner this week.
So that's one of the things that
Up
we're
for
going to be talking
examination
about
today is a
In addition
gram
to that,
of what is
this
purported
is probably
to be
not a
high
surprise to
THC
anybody.
indica,
Certainly not a
called
surprise to me.
Subway Scientist.
But
from
somehow the government
Plus, we'll take a look at
by
the
the fact
story
that
that we have been
they're
waiting
not
for
getting any
ever
cash
since
cow from
legalization
cannabis that
was
they
announced
thought they
October
would.
17th.
Is that
And
a
that is,
surprise?
what is the
since
government going to do
There are not very many
for all
stores
those
open, or
Canadians that
if
have
there are, then the
possession
stores don't have
charges
much stock.
or possession
Plus,
convictions?
Another
They have
piece out
finally
of
done
Manitoba,
something this week, and in
I
fact,
feel
the
sorry
story
for
came out
those
today.
cannabis
We'll chat
users who
about
live in
that.
Manitoba because you
The
can't grow your own
availability
plants.
of pardons
And now they have
for
some
simple
interesting
possession
ideas about
of
packaging
cannabis.
for
That's
cannabis.
one of the
We'll
stories
talk
we'll
about
cover.
that.
And
then I
since
think
the
I'm going
information
to
just
delve
came out
back into
as
the
we were
memory
getting
banks
this
if I can
particular
initiate
episode
some of those
prepared.
memories
We're
and
going
talk
to
about another time with our
revisit
in-laws
the
and
BC
the interesting
retail
discovery they made
landscape
with our
of
hot
cannabis.
knives.
2 additional
tell you what,
stores were added
take
this
that
week,
hit,
and we will do a review
hold
of
it
the
in,
entire province and
let's
see
get
where
started
all 13
with episode
stores
15
are.
of the
Let's get
Cannabis
started
Podcast.
with episode 14 of the Cannabis Podcast.
CBD, terpene profiles, what's in me? Oh,
One of the
please
first things I wanted to take a look at today was some news stories.
Cultivar Corner, oh yeah, Cultivar Corner, please explain the stuff to me.
Okay, that was kind of mean in me.
Petty little possession
I'm
charges
using a new piece of
that
gear
so many people
put
in
the
Canada
podcast together
suffered
this
over
week.
the last.
And it allows me to
40,
have
50
some of the
years.
various
And
transition
it's
pieces all
finally
lined
here.
up.
Now, whether it's good
I hit
enough
the wrong
to
button
satisfy
there.
all of us,
I don't actually
that's still a
have
debatable
a
point,
new
but let's give you the
cultivar to talk
details
about
and we
this
can
week.
think about that.
But there's no harm
Here's a headline from
in
the
playing
CDC
that jingle
from
because
today,
I still
March
like
1st.
the sound of that.
Liberals
I will
move
get
to
to know
grant
which
pardons for
buttons are
old
for
pot
which pieces
possession convictions.
a little bit better.
So the Liberal
I
government is moving on
apologize
its
for that
plan to
little
grant
tease.
fast,
I
free
truly didn't
pardons
mean
for
to tease you
Canadians.
about
Thank
that.
goodness they're free.
So the first thing I wanted to
who were
talk about
convicted
today
of pot
was
possession
the article
before the
from
drug was legalized
leafly.ca
last fall.
with advice for
It's called
first-time
Bill
cannabis
C-93.
smokers.
It was tabled
And
in the House of Commons
as
on
I
Friday.
mentioned already,
And
there
it
is a
amends the
couple
Criminal Records
who
Act,
lives in the same area as we do.
CRA, and
And
aims to
we've
break
been
down
kind of-
barriers
my
to
wife and I have
employment,
been kind of
housing, and
their
travel for
guide
Canadians with a criminal
down
record
the
for pot.
whole cannabis
Public Safety
introduction.
Minister Ralph Goodale says
I
on
think
the
it's
CBC
very
story
applicable
that he
as I
hopes
go
the
through
bill
this
will
particular
pass into
article.
law by summer.
I'm just going to relate to
A quote
how
from
that
him,
compares
"We believe
to
it's
what
good
our
public
experience
policy
has
to
been.
remove roadblocks
Then hopefully
to the
that'll be some
successful
value to somebody
reintegration of
who's
previous
also
offenders
just coming in and
who
new
have
to
fully
cannabis
served their sentences,
and wants to
especially
get the
after
best
such major
experience the
renovations
first,
to the laws
second,
as occurred
third,
with
fourth,
Bill
and fifth time
C-45
they try
last
it.
fall.
I'm
He said.
assuming you'll be back for more.
The Cannabis Act,
So what
which
I'm going to do is take
legalized
some of the
and regulated
headlines
the
that are in this
possession,
article,
cultivation, and
and then I'm
distribution
going
of
to take
marijuana.
what
Of
I
course, came into
perceive as
force
the
October
value in
17th,
that in my own words, and you can
Normally,
get
the fee for a
article's
pardon is
intent
$631,
by reading the
and that
article.
will
Of
be
course, we'll have that
waived under
posted
this bill.
back on
The 5 to
cannabispodcast.com
10-year waiting
underneath
period to
the
apply for a
episode.
pardon is also
So the
gonna
first
be
headline
waived.
is "Be prepared to
Border
not get
Security and
high."
Organized Crime Reduction Minister
And this
Bill
is a
Blair said
reality.
research indicates
This is a reality
As many
that
as
I discovered
400,000
again when
Canadians
talking
have
with
criminal
our
records for
friends.
simple possession.
When they first
The government
gave
expects
cannabis a
between
try,
70 and
they
80,000
found
are
that
eligible to
he
apply.
got high
He said the
pretty well
criminal
right
record
away.
is disproportionate to the
Had
offense
some
and
impact.
has
The
significant
cannabis
and
was having an
life-lasting
impact, but
impact
her-
on the person.
Not so much.
Now, to the point,
And
of
I
whether
think that is
this
one of the
enough,
things you're
and
going
this
to
is a
experience,
discussion
regardless
that'll
of
go on for
your
a while,
experience,
high
I'm
level.
sure. The first
I've
time you
seen
come
much
into it,
discussion
you
on
may
Twitter
not
and
experience,
various other
for
social
one
media
reason, you might
forums
not know
saying
what you're
that a pardon is
expecting
simply
to
not
find.
enough. And
I
in fact,
find
the
that
NDP
people who
is
have
saying,
been
no, record suspensions
immersed
are
in the
not enough.
cannabis
They are calling for expungement of the record.
And by that I mean the reefer
And asked
madness
why the
news, where
government
these-
did
all
not
these
opt
weird
for
ideas about
expungement,
what
which
cannabis
would erase
does.
all records
have
of
just
the
this
conviction.
bizarre idea about
Mr.
what
Goodale
cannabis
said
intoxication
expungements
is.
are the option when a law is
And
deemed
so when they first
unconstitutional
experience it,
and
it's
should
not what
never
they
have
were
been on the
thinking, and
books.
they don't think that they
Well,
got
quite
high.
frankly,
So be
folks,
prepared.
it should
That
never
is
have
their
been
first
on the
advice.
books.
And the first
So why
headline,
is
be
this a
prepared to
discussion
not
point?
get high.
Especially
Now, their second
when we
point
talk about what we're going to be
is
talking about
one that
later
is
in
true.
this episode.
So
the
true.
endocannabinoid system.
In
and
fact, as we
how
were
it has
dealing
been
with
a
our
force
friends,
of nature
we went
for
over
more
for
than
dinner one
500
night,
million years.
and we were sharing the
And yet because
vaporizer after
cannabis was
dinner.
made illegal
And one of the
in
things
North
I noticed
America
that
in the
it didn't look
1920s
like she was
and 30s,
really inhaling.
we, or some people,
Not only deep enough,
notice that subtle
nor
shifting.
long enough.
Some people
And so I
have
mentioned it
possession
over the
charges
course of the evening.
that now.
And I
they
guess
can
that's
ask
one of
for a
the
pardon
things that
for,
she
but I'm in
has
agreement
adjusted
with
and
everybody
is
who's saying it.
now
They should be expunged.
reportedly
The law should never have been on
achieving
the
some
books.
sense of high.
There's no reason why anybody
So
should
that's
still
the
have
second rule.
a criminal record
If you intend
for simple
to
possession
get
of
high
this
from smoking
marvelous
cannabis,
little
or at
plant.
least feel
That's my
some of
opinion
that
on it anyway. So what's
psychoactive
yours?
nature,
You're
you
always
do have
willing to
inhale
share
it,
your opinion with
and
us,
you
of
do
course.
have to
Send us a
hold
note
that
to
inhale in
at
for a while.
cannabispodcast.com.
Now, the next
Love
point
to
that
hear
they
what you
raise in
think
this
about
article,
both
they have the title of
podcast itself
Hydrate Like an
and any
Athlete,
of the stories that we
in the
covered.
sense that you're trying to
So
prepare
there's our
yourself
first look at the news
so that the next
on
morning
the
you don't have any
pardons
issues
now coming up
from
for
your
old
cannabis
pot
imbibing the
possession
night before.
convictions.
I haven't truly ever really experienced what I would
Cannabis-infused
call
studio
a
in the
cannabis
clouds.
hangover.
This is the Cannabis Podcast.
Of course, I had them when I used
Well,
to
since
drink.
we just had
but
cannabis infusion
in regards to
mentioned,
cannabis,
let's talk
I
about
wake
how
up the next
cannabis
morning and
gets
it's
infused
just another
into
morning.
our bodies.
So I'm not sure that I
Okay,
get the
that
sense
perhaps wasn't
of what they're
the
talking about in
strongest
that,
segue,
but you can look at what the author
because
has
that's
to
not
say
actually how
and see
cannabis
the
gets
direction they're
into our
heading. Now,
bodies.
the
It's
other
not
piece that they
infused.
advise in the next heading
But
is
regardless,
choose your
it's a
piece
good
wisely.
opportunity to bring up the
And by
topic
piece, they're referring
of the
to
endocannabinoid
how are you going
system.
to imbibe
And
your
the more
cannabis.
and more I discover,
Again, another
about
very,
the
very
endocannabinoid
valid point.
system, the more
As mentioned
fascinated
before,
I am,
our
the
friends
more
have
I
decided
wonder
that
why
vaporizing is
it
the
has
way to go.
taken
Neither one of them is a
our
smoker
modern society
and
so
don't want
long
to
to
become
figure out
smokers, so I understand
that this
that.
cannabis plant has
They first
so
chose a
many
vaporizer that they
beneficial
found
properties
wasn't
to it.
really
In
powerful
fact,
enough to handle
Our
lasting for a
bodies
session for
were
them.
built for it.
I understand that they've just
AKA
updated
the
to a
endocannabinoid
vaporizer
system.
of a more
So
powerful
the
nature, and
endocannabinoid
they're
system
having
is
a much
involved
more
with
pleasing
regulation of
experience
appetite,
with that.
pain,
So that's one
memory,
way.
mood,
Another way, of
and
course,
movement
is
in
for
the
those who
body.
do want to smoke.
The cannabinoid receptors,
rolling a joint.
CB1,
I'm surprised.
CB2,
That's one of the
are located in the
discoveries I
brain
made
as
this
well
week
as throughout
with
the
my
human
job as a
body.
bud tender, and how many
In
people
fact,
don't know
scientists
how to
believe that
roll a
the
joint.
endocannabinoid system has
And
been conserved in
They
living
need a rolling
organisms
machine in
for
order
more
to
than
do
500
that,
million
which I find
years.
just astounding. I
was a
guess
sea
because I
snail
was the
that was
guy
first identified
who was always
containing the endocannabinoid
sitting there
system.
over in the corner.
500 million
People would
years,
throw their
seriously?
bags at me and say, "Roll."
And somehow,
And
the
I would just
people in
roll.
North
I guess I
America
became really, really
decided in
good
the
at that.
1920s
So whether you're
and
going to roll a
30s
joint,
that
whether you're
the
going to do a
people with 480
vaporizer, or maybe you're going to use a bong.
had
Bong is
no
something that I
idea.
haven't used for a
I
long,
mean,
long time.
seriously,
Used to use
why-
it all the time.
Why was this
I
plant
guess
ever
I don't know
made
why we moved.
illegal
Well, I guess we moved to
in our
vaporizer. That's
society?
why we
I
moved away
have
from
no
the bong.
idea.
Or
The
maybe you're even going to
endocannabinoid
do a
system
dab.
affects a wide
And
variety
that's
of biological
one point
processes,
to raise
including
that
appetite
if you
and
are going
sleep.
to,
But its
especially
main
as a
function
first-time
is to
imbiber, I'm
regulate
not suggesting a dab
homeostasis.
would be the best choice.
Now, homeostasis
And
is
the reason is
extremely
that
important
the
when it comes to
THC
the
level
biology
is
of
so
all
high
living things.
in the concentrates anywhere
Homeostasis
60%
is
or
the
higher
ability
of
to
THC,
maintain stable
going
internal
up as high as
conditions
90% as I've
that are
seen in some of the
needed for
concentrates.
survival or optimal
So
health.
I think your first
Disease
bet
in its
is
simplest form
probably,
is
or
merely a
your
result
first
of some
best bet
aspect of
is
or
probably to
inability of the
use
body to
either a
achieve
vaporizer
homeostasis.
or roll a
Cannabinoids.
joint, and that way you can also
Cannabinoids.
control
That's
how
a
much you
great
imbibe
word,
by
and they
how
are
many
so
tokes you take.
beneficial.
Now, the next
Cannabinoids
point
have
of the
been
article
proven
on
to provide assistance in battling
leafy.ca
against the
involves
effects
the whole
of brain
concept
trauma,
of the
spinal
headline
cord
for it,
injury,
by the
and
way, is
strokes.
download a food courier
How do they do
app.
this, you may be
And what they're
asking
getting
yourself?
at
Well,
is
They
that
do it by
horrible
interrupting the
feeling
uptake of
when you've just
neurotransmitters that drive
imbibed
the
some
progression of
cannabis.
various diseases.
You're feeling really good.
The
You got the happy
endocannabinoid system
eyes.
works by sending one
And you
neutron
suddenly
to
get an
another.
urge for something you don't
Cannabis
have in
and
the
the
house.
CB1 receptor.
And your first inclination is to go out and get that
stress,
something that you don't have in the
increase in
house.
euphoria and
But
feeling
of course,
of
if
happiness,
you've just
decrease in
recently
convulsions
heavily
and
imbibed
tremors,
in cannabis,
and coping
that's
with chronic
probably
pain.
not a good idea.
The CB2
So the point of this
receptors in
article
cannabis,
is download
they've
a
been found
food
to be
courier
positive,
app or
have
anything
positive
else
effects
that you
for
can
decreasing cancer
check
cells,
out online and
boosting
get
the immune
delivered to
system,
you,
coping with
so you
Alzheimer's
don't have to
disease.
go out into the big
The human
nasty
body
world
not only has
and
CB1
worry
and
how they're going to
CB2 receptors
respond
internally,
to this stoned
but they're also
person
found in the skin,
coming in,
which explains why the
not too
topical
clear
cannabis
about what they want
applications
to
are
eat.
properly prepared
And the next point that they raise in the article is, and this is again very, very valid, clear your schedule.
Contained within plants.
Don't
THC
use your
and
first time to
CBD
imbibe
are two
cannabis
types of
on the night
phytocannabinoids.
that you're expecting your boss and
Endocannabinoids
his
are
wife to
found
come
in the
over for
human
dinner,
body naturally.
or you're expecting
They
the
are
in-laws to arrive
anandamide
suddenly.
and
Anything that
2-AG.
could
Those are both
interfere with your
endocannabinoids.
experience likely will.
Now, I'm not going to dive into
schedule around
all
it.
the science here because
Plan
it
it
is a
for a
fairly
time
deep
that
dive.
works really well for you.
And while it's worth identifying that
And then the
information
next
from the
point that
perspective
they've
of
raised in the article
the
is one
Cannabis
that I think
podcast, that's
deserves
way
a
too
lot of
deep of a
attention
dive.
because the
They wanna
headline
keep
is
things
never
at a
smoke with
slightly
sketchy
higher
people.
level. So
There's
let me
a number of
conclude
ways
this
you can
discussion on
interpret
the
the term sketchy
endocannabinoid
there.
system by saying
How I
that
interpret
it is
it
one of
is
the most interesting systems found
Those
in the human
people
body.
who you come across
As we learn more
at
about this
many
system,
times in your life,
there is a greater
that
interest in
just
its
rub you the
therapeutic
wrong
value.
way.
The many
Doesn't matter what you
undesirable
say
side
or
effects
what
that
they
opiate-based
say.
medicines
For
can
some
cause
reason, it's
have
like
become so
oil in
burdensome
water.
for
You
many
just
patients
do
with
not
today's
mix.
opioid crisis.
Those are
I am
not
so
the
glad to
people
see
you should be
the
sharing
focus
your first
finally
cannabis
turning towards
experience
cannabis
with.
as a
They are
possible
likely
way
not going to
out
be the ones who
for
are
those
going to
people
give
who
you
are on
the
opioids.
encouragement,
It's
the
likely in the
knowledge,
coming
and the
years you're going to see
understanding that you
pharmaceutical
need to truly
corporations
enjoy
exploiting the many
the
medicinal
experience, because it
applications
truly can
cannabinoids can be
an
prescribed
enjoyable
for.
experience when
Of
you've
course,
got the
we
right
point out
people
the good and
around you. And
they
that comes
gotta
to
come
another
in
point
and
raised
take
in
that
the
away
article
and try
that
to
develop
make
your
money
tribe.
off of it.
Figure
It
out
never
who are
fails
the
to
people
amaze
that
me.
have similar
Just
ideas
like
to you.
the endocannabinoid
You will
system
find,
never
I am
fails
sure,
to
as I
amaze
have,
me.
that those
And
who are
as we
involved in the
continue on
cannabis
with the
community
podcast
in
and the
any
education,
sense
we're going to talk about a few of
have
these very
a sense of
specific
family.
things.
We all
that are
have the
occurring
same
with that
desire.
system
We all
and
love
some of
this
the various
marvelous little plant in
cultivars of
whatever
cannabis
ways we love
and
it.
the terpene
And the
profiles
value and benefit
applicable
it
to that
brings to our
cultivar.
individual
I was
lives.
doing some research
And
on
we enjoy sharing
some
that
studies
information.
that are happening now
So get
in
out
relation
there,
to cancer,
develop your tribe,
and that cannabis has been
share
determined, especially
all of
high
the joy
CBD has been
with this
determined
wonderful
to
plant as
literally
you
stop the
experience for
formation
the
of
first
metastasis
or the
in
second
breast
time.
cancer.
I hope that gives you a bit of a sense
brief
of
look at the
some of the things to
endocannabinoid
keep
system.
in mind the first
If
time
you want to get
look
more,
to imbibe.
you can find
You'll
that
find all the
by doing your own
details
research,
and a
try
different
Mr.
tact
Google,
on many of those headlines.
or
if
you
read
can check out the
article on
Wikipedia
leafly.ca.
link located beneath
I
the
put
episode.
the article
back on
underneath the episode back on
cannabispodcast.com.
cannabispodcast.com.
THC, CBD,
Studio Hyper
terpene
Classic.
profiles, what's in
This is
me?
the Cannabis
Oh, please explain
Now, one
to
thing I read in the
me.
news this week
Cultivar
that I was not
corner,
surprised at all.
cultivar corner, oh yeah,
surprising to the
cultivar corner.
And that
Please
is that
explain
recreational
this stuff
cannabis is
to
not the
me.
cash cow that the government hoped it was going to be.
I still
This is
like
from
that
an
new
article
jingle.
on the National Post.
This is
most of
Cultivar
these
Corner
details.
for episode
It's
number
an opinion
14.
piece, and it starts
And
off with
this
BC,
week,
the only
where did they come
province
up
so
with some
far
of
to
these
disclose
names?
its excise tax revenues.
I mean, some of the cultivar
Had
names
expected
make sense.
$50
Lemon
million
haze, you
this
kinda
year.
figure you know where you're going to
Yeah.
get what that one has.
It'll be lucky if
This
they
one
get
I'm not too
$3
sure.
million this
Here's what
year.
we are looking at today on Cultivar
You can check
Corner.
out the
This
article
is
again underneath
from Riff,
the episode on
and it is called Subway
cannabispodcast.com that I'm going to
Scientist.
be referencing as
And I have a
we
1
go
gram
through this
package in front of
discussion.
me.
Michael
We're
J.
gonna pop
Armstrong
this
is the author
together.
of this
Haven't
article
done
in
that
the
for a
National
while.
Post. And he starts
BC
off saying,
cannabis
this month the federal
duty
government sent
stamp
the
is
first
still on
cannabis
top of it.
excise
Let's
tax
rip the top.
payments to the
Ah.
provinces, but almost
The
none
top
of the
has been
amounts
ripped.
were
The
disclosed.
stamp has been broken.
Likely because the
And I'm
checks
really
were
curious
smaller
about this
than
one,
officials
because
had
it's in a
expected.
little envelope.
But perhaps it's also because
Just a gram,
medical cannabis
and
plants
it
think the
feels
taxes are
really
unfair.
dry inside
Well,
of
British
that,
Columbia
so
was the only
I'm
province
not
so
sure what
far
I'm
to
gonna
disclose
experience
its
when I open it.
excise
Let's
tax
see.
revenues. They were
Oh, yeah, this is one of those
$1.3
tough
million
ones to
from
spot.
October to December 2018.
I don't know if
They
you've
had
experienced
expected that
that
to be
there. I finally broke it
$50
open.
million total
Some of
this
these
fiscal
plastic
year.
ones are really
Now,
hard to open
likely they'll be lucky if it gets to $3 million. Other provinces haven't even
there's
disclosed
some-
their receipts. Manitoba
some
didn't
odor
even
there.
mention cannabis revenues in last week's budget. But Michael suggests that there are other ways
sure
to
exactly
estimate
what I'm
pot
smelling
tax
out of that. I'm
revenues
gonna pump
using
it out
other data.
and take a peek at it.
Like, for example, the
See
federal
what we
government's
got.
share. Health
And we
Canada
just
data
got
shows
some
that producers
crumble.
sold 20.3 tons of medical cannabis last
I'm
quarter.
talking real crumble
Now,
here,
they also
folks.
apparently shipped 42 tons of recreational cannabis
is
to
barely a
distributors.
bud that is
The
still
federal cannabis excise tax
bud
portion is
in the Subway
0.25 cents per
Scientist, so I
gram,
can't
or
say I'm terribly impressed with
2.5%
that,
of
but
wholesale value, whichever is higher.
I did kind of figure that out
which
even
implies
before
that
I
Ottawa
opened this
received some
package.
$16 million
You just
in
kinda
excise
feel
taxes last
that
quarter.
There's not
And during
a lot
that
of big,
period,
huge bud in here. It feels
Statistics
like just
Canada
a
says
whole
legal
bunch of
cannabis sales totaled
almost
$307 million.
So the first
The
initial
5%
signs
federal
are
goods
not
and services
necessarily
tax
too
would
good
have
on this
generated
one.
some $15 million from
And
that.
second impression
Would suggest that Ottawa
stuff is
earned about
really
$31 million in GST and excise taxes on cannabis last
You
quarter.
can't even pick it up before it
Now,
crumbles
looking
in your
at a chart that Michael
got a
Armstrong
gram sitting
provided
in
in
front
this
of me that
National
is
Post article,
Basically, just
we see the
all
estimates of
crush.
pot tax revenue across the country.
Hard to tell
Newfoundland,
much. As soon as I pick some
2.5
of it up,
million.
the rest of it just
Nova
falls.
Scotia, 6.2 million.
Let me give you the
PEI, 1.1
rundown of what
million.
BC
New Brunswick,
Cannabis
3.3
store
million.
says
Quebec,
about Subway
14 million.
Scientist.
Ontario, and I
Featuring
don't know
the
how they
Indica
figured it was going to be this
Granddaddy
big, at
Purple.
$22 million
Created as a
with
cross between
only online
Purple
access.
Yerkle and Big
Manitoba,
Bud.
2.6 million.
Flowers are a deep
Saskatchewan,
purple
1.2
hue
million.
with
Alberta
white
was 10
crystal
million, and
trichomes.
BC,
Berry
2.24
aromas and
million.
flavors are prominent.
I'm sorry, but for me,
Now, maybe
I
when it
don't
was
see
first
why they
packaged,
thought
they
this
were.
was ever going to be a huge revenue
Once
stream
again,
when
I
they do
gotta
not
say,
have
the
the
flavor
revenue
and the aroma
outlets
are
to
definitely not
support
coming
that
through. I can barely
stream.
see any purple in this.
I mean, look,
Of course, it's
Ontario
pretty
still
hard when
doesn't
it's
have
crushed
any of
on a
their
piece of
stores. It's
paper
supposed to be
in front of
ready
you
for April
to see
1st.
any real colors.
Online
This
is the only
packaged.
access. Not everybody wants to buy
was
their pot
packaged
online. Same thing with
Oh, there you
BC.
go.
October 17th is when it was
June
legalized.
7th of
We are now
2018.
March, in the middle
That
of
might
March.
be one of the
the
reasons
Ides of
why we're
March,
finding it so dry.
And we
I
have
don't think
13
that our cannabis can
recreational
last
store
that long.
licenses that have been
Sitting in
announced
these
in the
little
province.
plastic containers.
That's
Wow.
it.
This
And
is
still
probably-
only one
this
government
almost goes
liquor
back to
store.
the ocean view.
Or, sorry,
Almost as dry
one
as that
government
stuff.
cannabis store.
So there's the description
How
of
do
it.
they
Let me give
figure
you the
that they're going
rest
to get any of
the
these
lowdown
revenues that they
on
thought
what
if they don't have the
Subway
access
Scientist is all
to
about.
the cannabis? For
It's produced in
goodness
Ontario.
sakes, government.
The brand
smart
is
enough.
Riff.
If there's one
RIFF.
area of this
The
legalization
producer was
process
Afria
that,
Incorporated.
as you can tell,
It is an indica
I
dominant.
am not terribly
They're
impressed.
suggesting the
It's
THC
that.
range runs between
And we've
15
faced
and
the same thing
25%,
here in the city of Kelowna.
the estimated potency.
They're expecting
The
tax
actual
revenues,
potency
but
of what I got,
their
the package indicates
process
that it is
to get the
point-
stores open is
0.54%
so long and so
for the
involved.
decarboxylized buds, or
The
rather
real worry now is
pre-decarboxylation.
that the people that have been
And with
in
that
that process
decarboxylation, the total
have spent
THC
so much
sitting
time
at
and spent so much money that now they're at the
20%.
risk
So that's
of
one of the higher
losing that
THCs.
money
Generally,
because they
I like
just
that.
can't wait any
CBD
longer for
range
these
is almost
licenses
non-existent. It's
to be
sitting in the
released.
0% range.
I don't understand.
The method of consumption
why
is
it takes
inhalation. The growing
so
method
long.
was in a greenhouse.
That's
The
one of the things
harvesting
I'm gonna
method
have
was
to
hand
see if I can
harvested.
investigate a little further.
And that may have
so
had
there
an
you go.
impact when
That's
they
one of the
initially
looks that we
harvested
were
this.
talking about today on how
The sucker
the
has been
government
sitting
is
in this little
surprised
plastic container
that they're not
since
getting the
June of
boosted
last year,
revenues they
and
thought
it
they
did
would
not
get
weather
with
well.
legalization.
Exploring the world of Canadian
And the proof
cannabis
is in the
culture,
pudding.
one
Although I
toke at
didn't
a
actually
time.
make any pudding, but I did weigh it.
This is the
So when I put
Cannabis
this 1 gram on
Podcast.
my scale,
Now, along
it
that
doesn't come
side
to
of
1 gram.
things, the other thing
I've
that I
even
found
added a
truly
paper tube
bizarre
after
this
rolling
year,
a joint,
or
put
this
it back
week,
on the scale.
was a
And it
tweet
still
that I
comes
saw
up
from
just
Dana
0.9
Larson
gram.
in regards to what's
So,
happening in Manitoba.
That does indicate
Well,
that the statement
you
on
may
these
or may not
packages,
believe
which
this.
says store in cool,
We
dry
already
conditions,
have identified
no
that
expiry
Manitoba
date
is
has been determined for
a
dried
very
cannabis
difficult
based on
place if you are a
stability
cannabis
data.
user.
I
My
think it's time to update
sympathies
the
to
stability
those who are
data.
living in Manitoba where you are not able
Well,
to
this
grow
may
your
not
own
be
cannabis.
expired.
But
It
now,
sure is not primo
based on a
cannabis.
report that is out
But
there
said
looking
joint
at
is
new
rolled.
legislation,
Let's
which is
see
going
if
to
Subway
limit
Scientist
the
at least has
possession of
20%
cannabis to 30
THC from an
grams,
indica
and
perspective.
so recreational
Let's see if
cannabis,
it at least has a big
grown or
bang.
homegrown cannabis, will be virtually outlawed. And secondary to that, they're suggesting that only legally, federally
Now, in terms of the
regulated
taste,
packaging would be allowed.
getting anything
I mean,
of
this
what
is
they talked
totally
about in that
bizarre, but
read up?
frankly not a surprise.
Granddaddy
Since we
Purple,
already
the
know
taste
that
is supposed
Manitoba
to be
doesn't want you
berry,
to grow
aromas and
cannabis at
flavors
home.
are prominent.
So, as Dana is pointing out in his tweet,
And again, I
effectively
have to say,
Manitoba
if
is banning cannabis
this is supposed to be full
that's
of
not in
berries
government
and
packaging.
flavor,
So, in other words,
aroma.
no possession of homegrown would be allowed.
Tastes all right.
The question I need to ask is: anybody
Ash.
who's creating
Yeah,
this
it's just all
bill
white.
actually
No real concerns
used
there,
cannabis
but
or had
had
anything
two
to
hits
do
so
with the
far.
federally regulated packaging?
Here comes number 3, and let's see if that starts
If there
to
is a topic that has come up time and time again in my job as a bud tender,
Induce a
it
nice
has been
body stone.
the legal packaging,
kind of what I would
especially
like.
in our
Oh,
case,
this
coming
one.
from the BC Cannabis Store. I mean, we've talked about it before.
Beginning-
The packaging is absurd.
starting to feel
There's
those happy
so
eyes.
much of it. So much
And it is definitely
plastic.
going more into a
And as we
body
uncovered
stone. So let's look at
in an
the
episode
terpene
2 or
profile
3 episodes ago,
for
storing your
Subway
cannabis in
Scientist.
plastic
I
is
don't
not the best
I don't
way
remember the
to
cultivar
retain
names. It's a
the
bizarre name.
wonderful terpenes. in your
Terpenes, of course, are the
cannabis.
chemicals created and
And
stored
yet,
in the trichomes.
this is what the
And
province
it
of
is the
Manitoba is thinking
combination
about
of the cannabinoids and the
Wow.
terpenes, which gives our
Just
cannabis
another
its
example,
taste,
frankly, in my
its
opinion,
aroma,
of
and
the
its effect.
weird, bizarre
The three
twists and turns
predominant
that are happening with
terpenes
legalization
in this particular
consider that I thought was going to be so much
Caryophyllene
more.
is the highest,
But there is
that's running
still
at
so
38
much
to
stigma
97%.
associated
Well, that's a pretty
to cannabis,
widespread.
obviously. the
especially
myrcene
in the province of Manitoba.
not
So we'll keep our eyes on
unusual to
that.
find because this
I'll
is
let you know what
indica.
happens with
Myrcene
Manitoba and
22
their
to 41%.
only allowing cannabis
and the limonene
in
is
federally
somewhere between
regulated
11
packaging.
and
That's the
16%
proposal.
in terms of the
Oh,
terpene
wow.
profile.
It just keeps
That's
getting
what you're looking at
weirder.
for a Subway scientist.
And one of the last things that I wanted to
Yeah,
talk
there's a
about
body
today
stone.
was to relate another story
Kind of feeling
that
it
happened
now
years ago
as it
with
settles in.
previous cannabis use.
My mind isn't racing.
And
so
in this case,
it's
actually,
certainly not a whole
the
lot of
compressed
sativa.
version of
There's not a lot
cannabis.
of pinene
Another
in
story
here.
related to my
The
in-laws.
myrcene and the
already
caryophyllene
kind of indicated in some
definitely
previous
seem to be the
stories
most
that
predominant, but
I
I'm not
was
getting much of
the black sheep who removed
really
one
not
of their
getting much
daughters
smell. There's no berries.
from underneath their realm.
Bit of a
And
disappointment.
I
have
don't
to
think
say.
that
This
they
was
ever
only
really truly
$7.99 a gram.
appreciated
He
that,
says
especially when they started to
$7.99 a gram
suspect
in
that
comparison to the
this
$13.99
black
gram
sheep
that we did
might
last week.
imbibe
So
in
there you go.
cannabis.
That is Subway scientist and
And I'm
indica
not sure I
dominant
tried to hide it
from
anyways.
Riff, which is
But
by a
this was the time when they came to visit, and
let's see, where am I going to come
what
down
we
on
used
this
to
one?
do, and I'm sure
Really
many of you
not
did as
impressed with the
well,
product.
was
And
use hot
certainly, at
knives.
least after having been
for
set
smoking
in
some
the
hash.
cupboard for in the box
Now, of course,
for
you still can't
who
get
knows how
hashish
long.
legally.
Something packaged on June
and
of
you can probably
2018,
get it on some of the black market
unpackaged
places
on March
that are available
1st
these days.
of 2019.
Back
and
in the
it did
day,
not fare
Of
well.
course, it was illegal then,
And
but
Cultivar
we
Corner
still
today,
imbibed in it, and
that is
hashish
our
was a
look
very
at a
nice
very
treat.
disappointing
And just in
Subway
case you're not sure
scientist
of what hashish is,
Afria.
it is a compressed form of cannabis where they take all those wonderful trichomes filled with terpenes and flavonoids and extract those and compress it into a brick shell. The extracts, the shatters and such of today.
To wrap up today's show,
But back
I want
in
to
the
take a
day,
look
hashish
at the
is what we
BC
had.
retail landscape.
And one of the ways we consumed that
Heard me
was
complaining about
through
it ever
hot
since
knifing.
we started the
You
podcast
would
back
take
in
two
December. I've been complaining
kitchen
about it ever
knives,
since October 17th. And
stick them
legalization
underneath
happened,
the
and there were no
blades
stores open
of an element
anywhere at that time.
while they heated up
except
to a glowing
in
heat.
Kamloops.
And then you
Now
would
there
take
are
a
13
small piece of your hashish,
approved
put it
retail
onto a cutting
private
board that you, of course,
licenses
use for
to
that
sell
particular
cannabis
purpose
in the province.
because it would get burned.
13 it has taken
And then
since
at the
October
appropriate time,
17th.
you would take the knives
And
off.
they come so
place the knives
slowly,
and
like it has been 2 weeks
compress
since the
that
last
piece
one.
of hashish
And I
between
thought it
those
was time
two
that we
knives.
recap.
Well, somebody
Give
was
you a
ready with
sense
a
of
paper
where
towel
all the
roll
private
to
stores
inhale all of that
And they are
wonderful
distributed
hashish.
all over the province.
That was hot
and they're
knifing.
getting a teensy
Occasionally,
bit closer
you
to the
would have
Okanagan.
an error, as I'm
The
sure
first
many
store,
of you have
first
experienced
retail
as
store,
well with one
because
of
they
those
started out
knives
with
that might
license
slip
numbers
and
starting in the
hit somebody, but
45,000
fortunately
range.
those
Actually,
were
it's
rare.
450,000.
And I was reminded of this
Where
story
licenses
when
start.
I
Number one
again was
goes
thinking of my
to
in-laws
Tamarack
visiting one
Cannabis
time.
Boutique in Kimberley,
My father-in-law came across these two
Congratulations
knives
to
in
them.
the cupboard.
Still trying to get
One of them
them to
is
come
sitting
on
at the
to
table
have
or
an
something.
interview.
We kind of kept them off to the
Perhaps giving
side.
up on that idea.
I don't know whether
Also,
it is,
the
but
second
in-laws, they
license,
tend
and
to
I
be
find
snoopy.
this just
And
interesting.
he found
that
these
the
and he
second
pulled them
license
out
was
and he said,
also
"What
in
the
Kimberley.
heck did you do to
That was
these
Earth's
knives?"
Own Naturals Limited.
I
The
kind of
third
looked at
license
my
from
wife
the
and was
BC
hoping
government
that she was
was
going to
to
come up with
Pouce
some
Coupe.
brilliant solutions
It was
to
a store called Weed
what the
Mart
purpose
in
was.
Pouce Coupe or Pouce
And
Coupe, however you would prefer to say it.
I stumbled
And
for a
then
bit, and I think she
we
actually
went for a
did
number
throw out
of weeks.
something
There were
about me
no
doing
stores, and
woodworking
then
or something.
suddenly,
and
bam, bam, bam,
that was
there were
required.
3 licenses that were released.
It didn't
in
make a whole
Vancouver.
lot of sense.
One
And
of them
then
was
to
for
add
evergreen
to that,
cannabis, and then
he
there
then,
was 2 licenses.
and I'm still
for
not
City
sure how he
Cannabis
came
Company.
across it.
The
He then
evergreen cannabis
somehow
was on 4th Avenue,
found
the City
the cutting
Cannabis,
board,
they were on Fraser Street,
which we
and on Robson
used
Street.
to do the hot knifing on.
Again, we waited
And needless to say,
a couple more
this
weeks,
cutting
and
board
then
was
suddenly, bam,
scorched
here's another
from
one.
top to
And that
bottom
was
on one
Trail,
side,
the
with a
higher
number of
path, a store that's open at
interestingly
Trail.
similarly
In
sized
a couple of weeks,
burn
Pork
marks.
Hearty was released.
Oddly enough,
Stellar
about
J
the size
Organics.
of the end of
That's
a
the
kitchen knife.
retail store. In
And there were
Pork
numerous of
Hearty,
them.
which has the BC government's
Well,
approval. In
my
Castlegar, the
father-in-law
higher path
was
is
really
there.
good
That
with
was just
working with
announced
wood.
a couple of weeks ago.
I mean, he
as
built
was,
the
on
house
same
that they
time,
lived in from
Invermere.
scratch.
And in Invermere, it's a place called
Maintained it.
Blooming World Cannabis.
Worked with wood on a
And
daily
then,
basis.
This one
So
I
I
guess
find just irritating this
because
marred and
Kamloops
burned
was the first
cutting board was like a challenge to
in
him.
the province to have a
And he wanted to
BC
take it home with him.
government cannabis
He
store.
wanted to take it back with
Well,
them
Kamloops
so that
also
he could
now has a
properly
retail
restore it,
license approved
finish it
for a
fully,
private
and then send
cannabis
it back
store.
to us.
And that is the Shore Cannabis Shop.
While we
which I
appreciate
suspect would
the
be on
offer
the North Shore in Kamloops.
and the
And then
genuine
today,
nature with which it was
this
offered,
was probably a couple of weeks
I
after
didn't
the
want to
government's
have a bunch
announcement.
of varnish on,
Today,
on this
I I had
cutting
seen
board
a
when we
tweet
were using it for
earlier
hot knifing,
kinda made
'cause I
me
didn't want to inhale
think
that.
it was
So
coming.
we had to gently
I checked, the
decline
update
the
hadn't been
offer
made, but now it
and,
has.
you know,
Two
suggest
new
thank you
stores
very
and
much,
two new
but no,
licenses announced
we'll
today.
get by with
The first
what we
is
have.
for Green Canoe
And I
Cannabis.
guess he
They
didn't
are in
look around at our
Salmon Arm, which
cupboards
is
anymore after that.
much closer to the Okanagan.
just a
because
little north of us.
he realized
And
that
finally,
he's not too sure
Starbuds
exactly
in
what he's
Dawson
going to
Creek.
find.
The first
So,
Starbuds in
if there is
BC
ever a
now
time
has their
that
license,
you
and I
think
know
that
they
there's
are
something
planning to
that
go
we
into
should
a
be
lot of
sharing
different
or
locations.
some information,
In fact, I believe
let us
Lake
know
Country
at
is one of their
info@cannabispodcast.com.
no
Same
license
thing that
release
goes
for
if
that
you have
store.
somebody you think we
So
should
there
interview
is
and
the
have a chat
update
with.
on the BC
In fact, I'm
retail
trying to line up
landscape.
again a
Now
couple of
total
interviews.
of 12,
One really
no, I'm
interesting
sorry,
that I hope I'm going to do
13
tomorrow. I'll
stores,
just tease you with
13
that.
private stores.
The plan is to
And
do the
they're
interview
now
tomorrow,
talking
and
about
it should be ready for
additional
next
BC
week.
government stores.
And
Let me
we
actually,
will likely
before-
dig up
before
another
I leave
cultivar,
this,
so
let me go
instead of
back
just
and
teasing
check
you
that
with the
particular
introduction,
website,
we'll actually
because that is a
do
different
another cultivar
area
corner.
checking.
That
for
brings
these
us to the
government
conclusion
cannabis
of
stores.
episode
Interestingly enough,
15
to check on that
of the
fact,
Cannabis
you have to
Podcast.
put in your birth date. I know that makes sense on some of
From the
these sites,
Cannabis
but a lot of
Infused
them sure
Studio,
doesn't.
high
And
above
there
the Okanagan
are
Valley.
no additional BC government
This was the
cannabis
Cannabis
stores
Podcast.
that are currently on the way, or at least being released to the public. So there was your update. We now have 13 stores, 13 private stores. They're getting closer. And then, of course, we also